यहाँ गुजरात में जब आते हैं, so it's not a coincidence that a fintech panel is right after the family business panel. So we are at the right place discussing the right things. Actually, fintech has gained a lot of prominence in India over the last few years. In fact, how many of us are kind of following this fintech trend here? We have few people who are actually looking at fintech very seriously. We have a short time, and we are just before lunch. So I'm just going to make sure that I give maximum time to my panelists to share their thoughts. And we'll also leave a lot of time for question answers, which of course Siddharth will very nicely conduct for us. So first of all, we've got Probir, we've got Amol, and we've got Nilay. Three of them actually bring very different sets of competencies to this panel, and which is really good. So first of all, I wanted first all of us to know these panelists. So I'd request Probir, followed by Amol and then Nilay, to talk a little bit about what they have been doing and what is their competence, so that we can actually, the audience can get a perspective of your thoughts as they hear it.
Yeah, hi everybody, thanks Vishwas. So we want to give as much time to you guys out there. Of course I can't see, didn't see, and they invested in us. I'm glad to say that we have hung in there for 10 years. It's not been an easy place. Today, post demonetization, I know fintech is hot and sexy, but trust me, it's not as easy to be in this space. It's a very tough, hyper-competitive space. So I give full credit to anybody who's been in this space for so many years. We started off with B2C, and we found that it's a tough space. We need a lot of capital, and we were lucky to pivot and move to B2B. Post demonetization, we pivoted again back to B2C because we saw 5x growth in our top line numbers. And now we have two streams, two drivers. One is B2B for enterprise payments, and one is B2C for mobile banking and mobile payments.
Thank you, Probir.
Hi, everyone. Is this working? Yeah.
Amol.
So I started my first startup, Converge Labs. That was, we started off in RF planning and optimization. Quickly we pivoted in mobile commerce.
Where was it? Is based out of Bombay?
So no, this was based in Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley, okay.
And we had a engineering center in Gurgaon. And we were doing kind of shared infrastructure planning, which was back then fairly new in India, in where the mobile towers were actually getting shared across different telcos. We pivoted that from RF planning into mobile commerce, mobile payments, but still we were early in the market. So as an entrepreneur, one of the lessons I had learned was that you have to absolutely make sure that the product market fit is right. It's been kind of 15 years, and now you're starting to see a lot of mobile wallets, especially in India, that are starting to happen. After that, I joined PayPal, was there for 10 years, headed their mobile payments team. And when I joined them back in 2007, we did just about $1 million in mobile payments volume. And last year, when I had left to join this company, All Cargo, we exited. That mobile payments piece itself was doing over $100 billion in mobile payments volume. So learned a lot from that. How do you scale businesses? How do you become an intrapreneur, as they call it, within a large company, and look at kind of how do you win market spaces, white spaces, etc. And now I'm working on as Chief Digital Officer at All Cargo, looking at how can we revolutionize shipping and logistics, and also kind of ancillary payments in specific verticals.
Thank you, Amol. It's very interesting. On one hand, we have Probir, who's started a payment company over a period of time, hung in there, and is actually one of the oldest payment companies. Way before it was sexy and it was called Fintech. Fintech is a relatively new word. And on the other hand, we have Amol, who has spent a lot of time, apart from his own venture, with PayPal. And PayPal is the fintech company to look for. So I'm sure we're going to get some interesting insights. But we have a very, very local boy right here, Nilay. Nilay, apart from what Probir said, can you talk a little bit about what you have been doing? How long have you been at it? And what is your focus of your company?
First of all, thanks Ahmedabad for giving me this opportunity and to give us this panel, which is amazing out here. So again, I'll just very briefly tell you what I did before I started EasyPay. We have almost 5-decade-old real estate firm based out of Ahmedabad. So I got back from Australia to Ahmedabad in about 2006, and I did about eight projects in Ahmedabad. In 2013...
What kind of projects?
Real estate projects.
Real estate, okay, all right.
So in 2013, because I'd been talking to a friend of mine who is based out of UK, he does a compliance for one of the largest multinationals. So we had conceived this idea of EasyPay because there was a huge gap for payment and payments opportunity in India. So I came to this very place, IIM Ahmedabad. I interacted with FII, Federation of Industry Interaction, and I had 3 teams of IIM Ahmedabad, last year in their PD postgraduate program.
When was that?
2013 October. Okay. And we divided 3 teams, one to look at the past of the payment market, one looking at the present of the payment market, and the last team was looking after the future of the payment market. And then there were 2 guys from IIM Ahmedabad who are with EasyPay from the day of its inception. They opted out of the placement and they joined EasyPay. We 3 of us kept on looking at the synergies in all these markets, and we came to a conclusion that, okay, what is the Indian version of Fintech? And that's what we've been doing. 2 years we took to study the market, to develop the technology that we have. We have patented products, blah, blah, blah. But everything is pretty much developed indigenously. And recently we're focusing mainly into the market, which is like financial inclusion. There are over 150 million people who are migrant laborers, who has got 3 or more dependents back home. And they are, they're always struggling in the fintech. They don't have the right fintech solution for them. So that's what we do, and we majorly focus right now on smart cities and the payment piece for the smart cities right now.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. And we just saw a KPMG NASSCOM report talking about fintech, basically talking about 5 or 6 main areas in which the whole fintech activity is going on. One is around the next generation payments and all the things about payments, and which of course happens to be the largest area. It isn't a coincidence that 2 of them are actually operating in that space more or less. The whole P2P lending, the bank in a box kind of a model. Financial inclusion happens to be a big deal. With all the things that are going on today in the country, financial inclusion, the big push actually driving a lot of the other ancillary industries in the fintech as well. Blockchain is another interesting idea. The whole advisory, robo-advisory, AI in that space is happening quite a lot. All this, and when you use technology to move money, security, biometrics, all those things are becoming important. Very broad brush really, and encompasses a lot of technologies around it. I want to ask Probir, he has done some very interesting research on the overall fintech landscape. Probir, can you spend a little bit of time with us telling about your perspective on what the whole landscape is, what the lay of the land is, so the entrepreneurs sitting here actually get a perspective?
Yeah, I was also wondering, what the hell is this fintech? Every time I'm invited for a fintech, I see lots of people on the panel and a lot of confusion. What exactly is fintech? Just because a lot of capital is chasing this space, or this space is getting a lot of mind share, or column centimeters, or media attention, I'm scared when that happens. And Amol and Chirag will know that when too much of attention comes in a particular sector, you need to just step back and take a look. So I'm just a little concerned what is fintech. So what I did for you guys is I have a slide out there. I don't know whether the guy who's manning the presentation, can you put up
do you
the
have a
first
slide that Probir has sent? Is it possible for you to put it on the...
Yeah, the slide comes up. We'll just get a broad sense of your fintech cheese kya hoti hai.
It's coming up.
Okay, great. So you put tech behind any word in India or anywhere in the world, you get fintech, health tech, and you got an industry and suddenly a lot of attention. So be cautious what the hell this fintech is. As I said, 10 years back, nobody knew what fintech meant. It was payments. Luckily, it became mobile payments. Then it became electronic payments. Then it became payment tech. And now I'm told it's fintech. God knows where it will be next. So this busy-looking slide, guys, is not a traffic jam somewhere in Delhi during peak hours. It certainly looks like that. But I'll ask Chirag to give you guys a present if you guys can tell me what this represents. Just take a guess. What is this slide? I can't see it, mind you, but I think I know what it is. So you guys tell me, what is this slide depicting? The guy who gets the answer gets a prize from TiECON, Ahmedabad. And if you guys don't get, I get that prize. Just take a wild guess. Anybody in the audience? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, digital. Huh?
Is it
one word I need, just one word.
It's an interlink between different companies, like if somebody is going through a payment gateway, there are n number of companies through which one is getting diverted to the last bank.
No. Just give me one word.
It is clutter.
Okay, go ahead. Probir.
Sorry. It's the homepage of a bank in America called Wells Fargo. Homepage. 5 years back, you could make out Wells Fargo and you would know exactly what the homepage is like. All of you are banks, you have ICICI homepage, HDFC homepage, Yes Bank homepage. It doesn't look as busy as this. This is the Wells Fargo homepage. 5 years back, there was nothing on this. There are 120 companies out there who are doing whatever Wells Fargo has been doing for 100 years. All this has happened in 5 years. If you go to the Wells Fargo business page, one down page, or the consumer lendings page, you'll find another 100 companies. So just see how banks are coming under threat and what kind of disruption is happening. This is called unbundling of banks. Whatever banks and traditional conservative financial institutions have been doing for 50, 60, 100 years, today nimble startups like guys like you in the audience, Nilay here, Amol, maybe us to some extent, are nibbling away at each of the bank's value proposition, whether it's related to payment, lending, credit scoring, fund transfer, loan, credit, jo bhi hai, payments. So these companies are nibbling away at the bank. This is called unbundling of banks. Anthony Jenkins, the former CEO of Barclays Bank, said by 2020, 50% of all jobs in banking will disappear. He left Barclays and started his own startup in fintech. So this is an indication of what's happening in this space and why perhaps it's so hot. The traditional conservative banks have now become disrupted and disintermediated by these guys. And India is not far behind. I believe in 2015, $12 billion across 1,000 fintech companies have been invested. So what's the math for India? 750 companies in last year and $1.2 billion invested. So India is not far behind the US or the Western world in this disruption. And it's good to know that because this is a space which is very hot. Everybody wants to get into it. And as Vishwas said, it's got all those components, right, from blockchain, payments, transfers, remittances, financial inclusion. There's so many drill downs on that, and there's an opportunity in each of those segments for many companies to come out from the bedroom, garage, from your hostel room. So that's the nature of the disruption in fintech, and that is what fintech basically is all about.
It's so funny, the whole Bitcoin phenomena, right? I just came across a news item that for the first time, the cryptocurrency has overtaken the gold. Ounce of a gold now it has overtaken a cost of ounce of a gold. So actually, you can even see even in the currency space, you see technology overtaking the traditional benchmarks of what the value of wealth is. Probir, you've listed this space where banks getting unbundled and so many opportunities and white spaces being owned, captured by younger companies deploying technology. I want to move over to Amol. See, you've spent lots of time and you've seen PayPal grow. Just shift the perspective on a global space as to how the fintech globally is evolving.
Sure. So if you look at, it all starts with solving a pain point, right? I mean, technology is just one thing, but we really have to see, as we kind of build new businesses, what is the pain point that we are solving? And one of the most successful examples, I would say, in fintech is this company called M-Pesa, which is M-Pesa in Kenya. So this was...
this is Vodafone, right?
Yeah, so Vodafone has a subsidiary called Safaricom in Kenya, and in 2015, 25% of Kenya's GDP actually was transferred through this mobile payment service that Vodafone launched called M-Pesa. So they started with a very simple solution to a problem, which is people, so first of all, the banking infrastructure in Kenya is significantly behind kind of markets like the West or India or any of that. But people were they were remitting money to their village, so Nairobi being the kind of the metro, and people had a huge pain point in transferring money back to their families. And what Vodafone subsidiary Safaricom did was that you use any telco recharge outlet, and this was 10 years back, just simply you pay at one end and you collect from the other end, so cash in, cash out, and that's how money transfer happened, and you just send back. Then you had SMS, you had this thing called USSD, which doesn't need a data plan. So they had adapted the technology to the kind of the usage pattern there. And it just grew from there. So solving that simple pain point, then as most people started using that payment service, they started expanding into merchant services. So millions of merchants now use M-Pesa for payments. So at a macro level, some of the larger trends you're starting to see is these compelling user experiences, right? You have Apple coming out with Apple Pay, Android coming out with Android Pay. So so technology is essentially, the consumer experiences are what's really driving some of these inherent payment schemes, and that's making it very difficult for new incumbents, because as the consumer touch points start becoming seamless within the operating system, you just need to work that much harder in making sure that the user experience is better. So whether it's online payments, whether it's retail payments, with the mobile phone now you can go in store and make the payment, but how do you create a technology experience that's much better than just paying cash to the storekeeper, right? And in addition to the user experience, we also need to make sure that the business model is viable, because many times I go to the, say one of the laundromats here, and they have a ICICI Bank payment gateway terminal, but he'll just say, hey, there's an ATM across the road, why don't you withdraw cash and pay me? Because they don't want to pay the 2.5% in merchant fees to the kind of card associations and stuff. So a lot of that is changing now with IMPS and UPI and all of that, and I think we'll see just amazing business models evolve from the payment side.
Vishwas, we're running short of time. With your permission, can we open the floor to a Q&A, if that would be okay with you?
Sure. I have one question that I want to ask
Nilay,
because I think there is a very interesting perspective that Nilay brings to the table, which is to do with the on-the-ground, local, India-specific situation, right? It's a unique and a different marketplace when you actually go down to the to everyday transactions that happen in the rural, and you touched upon the remittances that happen with the migrant labor. Talk a little bit about that, and also about the whole financial inclusion part of it. And before I open it up to the audience, I think one of the questions that we're going to be asked, and we might as well preempt it, is if you can speak like 30 seconds on your perspective on the demonetization and what impact it has had on the whole fintech. So first to you, and then we'll just go around and then we'll open it up to the audience. Is that okay?
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll answer the 30-second question first, that demonetization has confused people, especially the people that EasyPay is addressing, to be honest, because right now I've got BeamPay, I've got APS, UPI. First of all, if I'm a commoner, I'm barely making two hands meet. And then I've got 10 options which are brought in newly. I don't know which one to pay, so I go back to cash again. So yes, on a longer run, it's going to be good, but right now I'm confused as a commoner. But having said that, that on-ground reality with the people who are, doing a daily transaction. So by 2020, India's retail business is going to be almost $800 billion worth. Now, one of the categories where we see that, digital money gets converted into cash money is the retail industry. For example, a manufacturer, HUL or ITC pays their vendors and everyone in cash, check, down the line till the distributor. But when it comes to the retailer, so mind you, there are 14 million retailers out there in India, which are mom and pop stores, which doesn't allow organized retail to grow in India because of their strength, their reach. Connectivity to the household, so on and so forth. Now, these guys want, what Amol mentioned is very correct, that okay, they want money in cash because they do not want to spend on the transaction fees. And that is where we need to innovate even further, and it has to come as a common 1, 2, or 3 grounds. It can't be 10 different options. So I think that's where blockchain will come in very handy. That is where we've been doing a lot of work, and I'm pretty sure there are other companies who are doing a lot of work and flirting around with the idea of blockchain.
Sure. Thank you. A quick 30-second on the demonetization. I think it has opened up great opportunities for your company itself, right?
Yeah, see, I think demonetization is nothing to do with, we got the upside from that, and from November to now our gross processing value has probably gone up. Has gone up 5 times. So we are not complaining, mind you. Having said that, taking from Nilay, there are 20 options out there in the retail payments. If the slide can come up, the next slide shows all you guys that why Nilay is saying what he's saying is there are 20 options which have come out in India since the 5 years. The average consumer is very confused. क्या करे उसमें? SMS भेजे, USSD करे, IVR करे, app करे, Bheem करे, UPI करे, Aadhaar enable करे, wallet करे, cash करे, कुछ भी ना करे. So this confusion is there. So in one hand, it has given all of us a big boost.
The other one, not this one.
So these are some of the gross values of some of the major. There are about 10 or 12 key things. I have not added bots. I have not added blockchain. I have not added NFC. I have not added contactless. But if you just look at this, including wallets, you'll see this plethora of options available outside for each one of you. So which one should I use? And to end, I would say that though demonetization has given all of us a fillip, the remonetization is making things go back to cash. So our numbers are not showing a month-on-month growth. They are falling back to a pre-demonetization trend.
Very interesting.
I guess I somewhat disagree. If you look at not too far from here, the village of Akodra, right? It's one of India's first digital villages, and they did a survey of the effect of demonetization in that village, which was entirely cashless to begin with before demonetization. It was an experiment, but and under certain constraints. And actually, nobody got adversely affected. Life just went on. And so from that standpoint, I'm hopeful that if we can replicate some of those models, then in the next 5 to 10 years, I think Digital India would actually be a very positive thing for all of us.
Thank you.